Welcome to episode 9 of the Optimal Potential Podcast. I am Travis Sertan.
And I'm Dr.Matt.Barle.
And I'm the new guy, Fred DeNisco.
Today we talk about how Fred went to the US Open and he fixed people and he made them feel better and they are now optimally potentialed.
Cue the lightning. All right, guys. So how's everybody doing today? Let's do a quick accountability check-in. What's been the latest with you, Trev?
I'm down 10 pounds.
Nice.
185.2, I think, since this morning.
Okay.
You know?
So what have you been doing differently?
I'm actually counting my macros. I stopped being lazy.
It works, huh?
Yeah, I stopped being lazy. I stopped that, and because all those gut issues I've been dealing with, I've been addressing them. We have these pills that I got to take. I got to take betaine HCl. I don't know if you ever heard of that before.
Nope.
Basically, if you don't produce enough stomach acid, you have to introduce stomach acid to the system. You have to actually intake it before each meal. So I'm doing that, and it's actually allowing me to digest. So I actually absorb nutrients now, and I don't have a whirlwind of like stomach issues, and I can actually work out, I can actually eat, and I could actually be functioning again.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
Have you changed your routine eating-wise too? Have you modified anything there?
Well, I mean, the macros, I'm just following macros again. I stopped doing the macro thing because it wasn't working because I was always so sick. And then now that I actually digest, the macro thing is starting to work and make sense once again. Yeah, 185.2. I fit this new cut shirt.
Yeah, looking good, man.
This new cut shirt is nice, but it's starting to get loose on me, which is fine. I still like the loose look.
Might need a new batch of attire.
Cuts, we need a new batch of clothing. No, the medium is actually way too small for me.
Okay.
It's really, what are you, a large?
I go medium.
You go medium?
Yeah.
Yeah, the medium is just way too small for me. I have two of their shirts. I could use some shorts, though. I'm going to leave that alone. Throwing it back to you. What have you been up to?
So I started the new program, the monthly program I'm doing working out wise. So it's the new batch of exercises for the next 4 weeks. So that's always fun, kind of doing some new stuff, kind of getting the weights down, so where I should be with each exercise and progressing on the weekly basis. But that big word, that lateral epicondylitis that I was feeling 2 weeks ago in my elbow, that's been getting better. So I'm feeling a little better with that. Been doing a little bit of rehab on my own. Other than that, been busy. There's a lot of workshops lately with the business. So I did a yoga workshop yesterday, or 2 days ago rather. I did an F45 workshop for knee injuries yesterday. So been kind of working around that schedule and getting my workouts in. But overall, been feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I think if people want to, people underestimate the power of a good workshop. Like a small, intimate one too.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, yesterday's it was 4 people that came to it, but because of that, we were able to go a little more in depth on each person's injury, what they've been feeling during their workouts, and give them some corrective exercises that were maybe tailored a little bit more to them, versus the bigger workshops where maybe I had 15, 20 people. You can't really get as specific with people. So each. Yeah, specific. But yeah, so it was cool. It was nice to meet some of the members and talk to them. But how about you, sir?
Fred,
what's
new guy.
been the latest?
Oh, man. You guys are pretty active. I'm actually pretty impressed of what you guys have been doing. I have gained 1.21 pounds.
Yes!
Yeah.
Bulking season.
I've actually been traveling.
Yeah.
So, traveling on the road, you kind of have to tailor your routine to kind of what you're doing. I'll be honest. I mean, listen, being down in North Carolina at the Women's U.S. Open, being able to access all of the food they're available to, it allowed you to have some great meals. I mean, like I said, I think the U.S. Open really opens the door for, your elite athletes and kind of exposure to kind of what they have available to them. And so, like I said, being a part of the recovery and performance team down there, it was really eye-opening.
That sounds heavy, right? That doesn't sound like a
No.
That doesn't sound like a minor job. Like that's a pretty important. The U.S. Open's it's a big deal.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, listen, I got the opportunity from Dr. Poplarski, who was on past episode here. He's assembled a great team of chiropractors, massage therapists. Me as one of the athletic trainers there, a physical therapist. We had a hyperbaric chamber while we were there. So it was actually really, really interesting to see the overlap of all of those disciplines and how we can be available to the elite golfers and then the amateur golfers who qualify through different tournaments.
So now, how did that work when they came in? So like somebody walked into the office, and then how did you guys take each individual? Was it like a system you guys had down there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It really brought me back to like my athletic training roots, where kind of you never know what's walking in the door, right? So like as an athletic trainer, you'll get an injury or something going on, an issue an athlete might have, and right then and there you kind of have to work through that to figure it out, right? So it was interesting because all of those other professionals that we worked with, it was a matter of just kind of working through what the issue was, talking to the golfer and the caddies. Actually, we actually worked with a lot of caddies, more caddies I think than golfers. Yeah,
Injuries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one guy's come back from a spinal fusion, a lot of psoas tightness going on. So yeah,
and the caddies are like one-sided a lot, right?
So Trav, you were on it, man. So it's interesting. One of the questions we had for them all the time was, "Are you a double?" Is it a double carry bag or is it a shoulder carry bag? And so it was really interesting to feel how we had to kind of figure out what they were doing, what they preferred.
Did you tend to get more doubles or
more doubles?
Okay,
exactly.
so at least keeping it a little more symmetrical.
Yeah,
and could that change the game for caddies going forward? If you guys see more injury prone, like these caddies are injury prone, could you possibly maybe everyone's gonna hear it? Maybe invent something that's more double.
I don't know. Well, the double strap really allows you to kind of like just take the brunt of the force, the weight of the force of the bag, which actually weighs about 45 pounds.
Yeah, it's heavy.
You're walking 18 holes.
Yeah, redistributes it through, throughout the back.
And then there's no hip strap.
No, not yet. But maybe that's something you can come up with. I don't know.
Guys,
but
this could be it, guys.
Yeah. But if you think about it, right? So the course that we were on was in Pine Needles down in North Carolina where Pinehurst is. And it's a very undulating course. So it's not flat. So everything is hilly. We were actually seeing a lot of caddies that were coming there for, just want to take care of themselves in between rounds, which they were so appreciative that we were there. But the one thing that we saw a lot of was a lot of foot injuries. A lot of caddies were coming in with ankle sprains that actually happened during the round, or they had previous ankle sprains that they were trying to just make sure that they kept under wraps. We had a lot of foot issues, blisters and things. Some were wearing new shoe
You saw
wear.
it more like towards the outside of the fucked up foot, right?
Listen,
because
the foot is, we talked about this on a couple shows ago, right? How important the foot is, because it's really, the ground is really what your surface, where you're pushing, getting your power from as a player. As a caddy, you are walking all over the place, and you're not just always walking forward. You're sideways, you're backwards. So
up and down hills,
yeah,
and sand traps.
I think about this when it comes to, I see women carrying heavy bags on one side as they go to work, and they're in heels, or maybe they're not in heels, but they're one-sided all the time, and they favor that side. And you could see clearly by the time they're in their 30s, they got a little bit of a hunch to that one bag side, and then you see their hips are off.
You hanging out with bag women ladies?
It's crazy, but I
love my wife. I love my wife, but I'm trying to convince her to do book bag. I can't convince her to do it. She's like, I look like a turtle. I was like,
So thank me in the future.
Yeah.
But the strap's a good idea because, like I said, I mean, if you're around this area where there's a lot of kids, a lot of schools, August, September, you see a lot of blogs that come out about, backpack usage and loading the backpacks and how to properly put a backpack on. Listen, when it comes to caddies who are carrying those clubs, you're seeing a lot of, and so it was really interesting just to kind of see the array of injuries that came in from players and caddies.
That's cool. Yeah, it's one of the things that it's such a small part of the game, but like if you're constantly doing that every day, every weekend, every year, every month rather, it's going to add up more and more, and you get these overuse injuries.
100%. And like I said, it was really interesting that, we talk about overuse and you think about, you're talking about your lateral epicondylitis before. Yeah. And we saw a great amateur who actually plays down in Florida, based out of Honolulu. Nice life, right? She had some lateral epicondylitis going, but all of her treatment up to that point was only centered around her wrist. So, it was nice that we actually get her kind of on the right path. She had a great career ahead of her.
Wait, so you changed something? It was only to the wrist? Did you have to do anything else?
So it seemed like all of her treatment had always been geared toward the wrist because she had wrist tendonitis pain.
So they didn't look at the shoulder, the lats?
Listen, I don't know her medical team that she had around her, prior to her exposure to us. But, as we kind of looked through it, a lot of our soft tissue manual therapists really did some work on the front side of her forearm, on the palm side of her forearm, and it alleviated a lot of her pain right away. And we did some just different manual muscle techniques, muscle energy techniques, just to get her relaxed.
Yeah, that's cool.
Unfortunately, she didn't make the cut, but she stuck around to get treatment and hang out and watch, some of the other elite golfers.
I mean, hopefully learn some things about her rehab and how to be ready for the next round of golf.
Yeah, her caddy, who was her father, really appreciated the fact that we were around, and he got some treatment too, so everybody was loving it. It was really, really cool. But my point earlier was that it was just really cool to see the interplay between all of the disciplines that were there, between chiropractor and therapist and a massage therapist. There was no ulterior motive, no agenda.
So now I often find this is an issue that I see with some patients here and there where the communication maybe isn't there between all those disciplines. And I feel like because of that, the patient doesn't get the best quality of care because maybe the doctor isn't speaking with the physical therapist or the PT is not speaking with the athletic trainer at the school. And I think sometimes things get lost in translation or the game plan isn't always coinciding with the other professionals.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot outside of
It's amazing to see what happens when you remove insurance from the entire process, right? So I'm not going to go into that because that's a can of worms we can talk about forever.
You can go into it.
No, we should.
Taking insurance out, it means you can look at the whole body versus just the one thing that's being prescribed.
Yeah, I wish people did more research and realized that because the quality of care you get when you're not worrying about insurance dictating the plan of care and all the professionals can just do their jobs.
Right.
We've seen it and it's an awesome experience for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so to go to your main question, yeah, it was great to see that. Hey, listen, we had a young player who had a groin strain. Basically, she wasn't able to get to the top of her backswing because she was feeling some strain in the inside of her lead hip. Right, so she's a right-handed golfer, goes into your backswing. If you guys can think about it, right, left hip, she's not going to get back there because she feels it. So what we were able to do is we would actually work with our therapist and myself, do some PNF, contract, relax, reversal to kind of have that muscle relax. And then what we did was we worked with one of the chiropractors who was there to actually look and kind of do some adjustments to her SI. And together, we were able to get her going. We did some kinesio taping to that side, which helped her. And she was able to get through the round. In fact, she was actually playing at a very high level early in the tournament.
Okay, cool.
First few rounds. It was actually pretty cool to see.
Moving a little more efficiently, maybe.
Yes.
It's cool because, that's probably outside of that could have been 3 different days of sessions with a chiropractor, with an athletic trainer, with the PT, and to get it all at once, rapid fire, and kind of hit a little bit of everything, it makes sense why she felt so much better so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, when you remove that there's a quote-unquote ego attached to kind of what you're applying to an athlete or, someone who's in pain or just wants to feel better, at the end of the day, once that's removed and you're involving all of these different disciplines, like you said, you're creating an optimal, well, look at that, plug for the podcast. You're creating an optimum potential for that athlete. And ideally, I think that's what we're all trying to do. So, I think it speaks volumes to level of care that, that groups provide.
Yeah, I hope everybody listens to that because it really shouldn't be a competition. You sometimes hear physical therapists competing with chiropractors or, it shouldn't be the case. And I think when you take insurance out of it, I think it gets a lot easier where, everybody can kind of coincide with one another and keep the patient's care at the top priority.
Yeah, and in any relationship, what's the core of any good relationship? Communication, right? Mm-hmm. And that was great because we're all there in-house. And so we say, hey, I got this going on. Do you think that you can do anything to fix this? Or, hey, can I get your eyes or hands or just thoughts on this? And so it was great because that level of communication was it was perfect.
Yeah. And whenever somebody thinks they can fix everything, I think that's when things go downhill. Where,
right.
Maybe you don't stay within your scope of practice, or you try to do something you're not really, trained to do, or you're not used to doing. Where you have that person right next to you that maybe specializes in it. Why not ask for help?
Why don't we have that now? What's stopping the existence for the general population to have that group that doesn't take insurance here, like on Long Island or in Queens, or why don't they do that?
Yeah,
Because you have your
there's-
practice, which is non-insurance based, and then what's stopping you and a bunch of others from grouping together?
I mean, you need a script for everything. If you want to go to PT, you need a script. If you want to,
No, so what? But you're not insurance based.
yeah.
Nobody's
So I'm not
prescribing
saying
you.
like, so it's nice where, let's say somebody comes in for a shoulder issue, but they're also having back pain. From an insurance standpoint, you're going to need 2 different scripts to work on the shoulder, to work on the back. So you have to do 2 different evaluations. The beauty of me not having to really worry about that is like, all right, we can focus on the shoulder if that's the main issue, but let's also touch on the back a little bit and let's figure out that issue at the same time and have more of a holistic approach rather than having to go 2 different days for 2 different evaluations, which not a lot of people have time to do PT 3 times
Right.
a week anyway.
Right.
So it's now how long are you prolonging the process because you got to do one thing at a time. You can't touch the back because it's a shoulder script, and things like that. So you take insurance out of the equation, and you can just create the plan of care the way you want to create it in the best interest of the patient.
Well, that's true. I mean, sometimes, like I said, you can, depending on the state you're in, obviously here in
Yeah.
New York, we have, direct access
access,
law,
yeah.
right? Which has limitations to it, right? You can see for 10 visits or 30 days, whichever comes first. Obviously, it's a non-Medicare type of, patient. But again, you could see a patient without a prescription. However, to your point, like you evaluate that, there could be a million things going on. So do you necessarily need imaging? So all of those factors come into play, right? I can tell you in New York City where, my practice that I'm a part of is.
What's your practice called?
So there's 2 portions of it. There's called ADPT, which stands for Alvin DK Physical Therapy. He's a fantastic guy. We'll introduce you to him one day. And then the parent company is called Synergy Physical Therapy. And so basically what we see there is we see a lot of patients that come to us without a prescription. And essentially what we're doing now is we're helping them guide them through their injury. So again, can physical therapy help? Can some level of therapy help? And then at the end of the day, if we feel, hey, listen, there's something else going on here that we feel we need to involve some other type of professional, we'll guide them to whoever that professional is.
Yes,
What would be more than the physical therapy side of things?
Could be a physician you start off to look at imaging, like such as X-ray, MRI. We have an in-house acupuncturist who does cupping, dry needling. We have a massage therapy group that's with us in Midtown Manhattan. So again, they're vital to what we're trying to do. So it's been great.
Do you guys team up with anybody for like I push this so much, the whole gut health thing, right? You got anybody in there for like looking at the TMI for us? This might be heavy for some, but like anybody looking at the fecal, anybody looking at like a full body scan to see like maybe if the body's too acidic or under acidic.
So we know how important it is, right? So we want the whole body approach, the holistic approach. And so recently we've really partnered up with a sports dietitian in Manhattan that really basically covers from youth athletics or youth individuals or your basic youth all the way up through masters athletes or those over the age of 35. So again, she can deal with anything that's regarding performance and or just regular dietary and nutrition needs.
I'm gonna send you a link to it's a out of network testing for it's like a little swab, and you send it out to the lab. It's like $300 something, and it gives you a full body kind of idea of like how acidic or what kind of extra stuff is going on, parasites and all that stuff. It helps a lot of athletes to figure out when they're having pain or when they're having issues and they can't do this, they can't do that. Like it helps to help them find out what's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, we bring it back to how we started this conversation, which was me talking about, the availability of food and what was available for, the athletes at the Women's US Open,
yeah.
right? And like I said, it really ran the course from anything from gluten-free to, any high-protein diet. I mean, everything that you couldn't think of was there at different times of the day, every day.
You mean the high protein diet was just not a staple? I would think it's a staple for athletes. No?
So not necessarily. You need some level of carbs before you go out and
No, I mean, but
right.
you'd always have it in there, right? Like, no?
I mean, sure, it's probably like anything. I mean, you got to just tailor it to the individual, right? Just like training programs. So,
Like, I'm curious, like, is there a high level of need for protein in golf?
I would say in between rounds, you want to bump up your level of protein for sure.
Okay.
Prior to your round, like the day before you, or the day of your play, you definitely need carbs. I mean, and there are things that are available to all of the athletes that they could put in their bags. And here's another great story for you from the U.S. Open. Watching one of the practice rounds, amateur, actually he's pretty local female. Mom's following it, right? Mom's like, hey, I haven't seen you take a drink in 2 holes. The kid looks at her, and I kind of start chuckling. She goes, see? I'm like, yeah, good advice. So she was looking, make sure, I mean, it was hot down there. It was like in the 90s during the practice rounds. But she was making sure that her kid was hydrating at least every few holes.
It makes so much sense, though, because I mean, once you get to the elite level, like these golfers are, now it's the little things that really can set you apart from winning that tournament. So it's going to be the nutrition, it's going to be your hydration, your recovery. If those are out of whack, your performance is going to suffer, and you might not play as well as you want to. So like those small things end up being the big things in the grand scheme of things. There.
Make sure you hydrate every few holes.
That's what she said.
Drink right now. Water.
Good idea. Go on.
I'm 12. Anyways. Wait, so what equipment was there at the U.S. Open that you typically don't see at rehab or physical therapy places?
Yeah, in the recovery and performance department area where we were, it was really, really interesting. I mean, we had a hyperbaric chamber.
Pretty cool.
That
you don't see that often.
Yeah, no,
That's where Goku trained, right?
Became a Super Saiyan there, right?
I think
fact check that one.
I think it's actually hyperbolic chamber. I had to double check it. Yeah.
So the hyperbaric chamber was really of high interest to a lot of players. It was actually really cool to have that. We were doing like half an hour to hour long treatments. Anecdotally, people were coming out and being like, "Oh, I feel great." That they slept better that night. The next day they came in, did it again. So it was good exposure for them. Some of the other equipment that really was popular there was the Normatec compression devices. So
I've seen you with that.
Yeah, I've used them before. Yeah, I love them for myself too. I mean, it's great for recovery.
Yeah, I mean, they look like these big. If nobody knows what it is, it's those big plastic boots that you could put on. Right, they basically go from cover your foot all the way to the really top of your thigh, and they're big sleeves. They fill up with air sequentially from foot all the way to thigh. If you put somebody in like one of those anti-gravity chairs, like those zero gravity chairs, so they're elevated, as they go through that, basically just flushes out all the fluid. Because if you think about it, you're on a golf course for 4 to 5 hours on your feet for probably more than that. Right. It's hot. You're taking your fluid. All the fluid's going to rush it down to the lower part of the body. And so at the end of the day, if you can get that fluid to get reabsorbed to the body, it works really well.
I'm dying right now because like golfers are doing this, right? But runners probably should be doing this.
Absolutely.
I mean, anybody really in a speed
benefit
sport.
any athlete, really.
Yeah.
But it kind of acts as the circulatory system and does its job. Just pumps that lactic acid out and get some fresh nutrients to the area.
It's interesting. So is there like a little bit of like so now this is a little deeper, probably a conversation we should maybe have, I don't know. But is there like an economic difference that says that golfers can do this? But like, your marathon runner probably won't be able to because
no. I mean, listen, if anybody researched online,
is it expensive?
If anybody's researched online, there's a number of different places all throughout the country that offer these, whether it's physical therapy locations, chiropractic practices, what have you.
I heard Dr.Matt.Barle also offers this.
Well, and I think it always comes back to too, like you don't need to go to these places just for an injury. I mean, you can go anywhere
for rehab just
to stay healthy.
And I think it's nice to have a recovery suite.
Yeah, right. And I think having that proactive mindset that we always talk about, I think it's always good to have that mindset because you can nip symptoms in the bud before they become anything else. So yeah, if you're feeling tight, Google recovery session.
Google Dr. Matt.Barle.
Yes, you can do that, and any recovery locations that are around. I mean, there's so many, like you said. It's not too expensive for an hour session at a lot of these places or whatever it might be. I mean, the Normatec is usually 15-20 minutes, so it's quick. You're in and you're out if you're doing that.
I think you did. You designed some like a recovery program for like 30 minutes, and you had something set up like that before.
Yeah, so it all comes back to like just kind of the proactive mindset. So a lot of people that I've had as patients, end up just continuing as more so just to stay healthy and make sure they can continue doing their workouts. And because life, you're gonna have those injuries or those little bumps and bruises. But it doesn't mean that you need to do you do nothing about it and you let it progress. So we'll do 30-minute recovery sessions where we can do manual therapy, some soft tissue massage or the recovery boots, and just keep them feeling good for their golf workouts, whatever their sport is. We can kind of implement that into the practice.
It's perfect.
Would that help a desk jockey, like somebody who's just sitting at the desk all day and then wants to go work out in the evening and the weekends?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're sitting for 7, 8 hours, you figure
All that water.
you're probably not getting any blood. The blood's not flowing. You're not getting. You're probably stiffening up. You're in a shortened position, so the hips are going to be tight. Your lower back's going to feel tight. So yeah, first off, take breaks, get into that extended position. But anybody's got to be working out. I would promote that for anybody, getting in the gym or doing something at least 1 to 2 times a week. So yeah, it's good for everybody. So now you mentioned the PNF stretching at the tournament. So go a little more in depth on that. What exactly is PNF stretching for anybody who doesn't know? And how did you guys utilize that and other manual therapy methods with the golfers?
So yeah, it's a good question, Matt. So if anybody's ever, looked into stretching before, probably all remember from phys ed class when we were kids, right? We all kind of had to do the stretch in a certain position. If we were thinking about our hamstrings, bending over, touching our toes, feeling the pain or the discomfort in the back of our hamstrings, right? And you hold for a little bit.
Test always kick my ass.
Yeah. So that's passive type of stretching, is, one area to go. However, people overdo it, right? So what tends to happen is the muscle that you're trying to stretch or elongate and lengthen, what ends up happening is it fights back. You have a muscle stretch reflex that actually fights back against you. So it actually kind of sometimes doesn't do as much, right? You have to kind of really figure it out. So what I'd like to do is use that PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. So the muscles to actually have them relax if you fire the muscle on the opposite side. So let's just talk about our hamstrings. Actually, we talked about before, one of our players at the US Open had a groin strain, right? So it was an adductor, right? So if everybody thinks about your groin, your adductors help your thigh or your leg move inside toward the midline of your body. So if we activate the muscles on the outside, her abductors, right? So her glutes, anything that's going to pull her leg away from her body, that's going to allow reciprocally the inside muscle to relax. So just think about it put this way. If we were going to do a groin stretch, right? You would go into a butterfly. Right? So you're sitting, you're doing a butterfly. If you push down on your knees, that's a passive stretch. You're trying to elongate that muscle. As I mentioned before, sometimes that muscle knows that it's stretching too much or too fast, and it actually contracts. So it's actually making itself tighter. So what we want to do is we want to use the outside muscles, those glute muscles, to open up actively in that butterfly stretch. And that's going to allow the inside muscle to relax. Another technique we can use too is actually to have the muscle that we want to stretch, we can actually have it contract against an immovable object or something like an isometric stretch where it's not really moving. And what it does is it kind of does that and tightens up, contracts. And then what we do is we have that person relax, go into that opposite motion using the muscles on the outside, and that helps that muscle relax. So that PNF back and forth allows some flexibility to occur. That's, again, making sure that it's only muscle or tendon that's the issue, not a capsular tightness that you would see like in a frozen shoulder or some bony type of tightness that you would have like in a hip impingement.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember.
Trav, you awake?
No, I was having flashbacks to like my sports club in Bally's days.
Yeah.
Where at one point you actually were allowed to. I don't know if you know this, but like they kind of like there were intermittent times where they banned manual stretching techniques on your clients.
Really?
Yeah, there were definitely moments where they
partner assisted stretching, no go.
Yeah, they're like, because
that's not a COVID thing, right?
No, this is way before. I haven't been a trainer at a gym in like, I don't know, 8 years.
What was the reason behind it?
I don't know. Probably just looks weird when you're mounted on top of your client trying to open their hamstrings up one leg at a time. Everybody knows how weird that looked. And it was always that big masculine male trainer on the females.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was one of the things. It just was too sexualized. But like, yeah, that it does work though. Like you instantly see your client get a little bit more range of motion out of something when you hold their leg up and you go lightly push against me.
Correct.
And then let them relax and bring it back, and they're just like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you got it.
It does work. It does work.
Yeah, it's good. You get that mobility back sometimes pretty quickly, and now you're able to do the things that you want to do. So even this past week in the knee workshop that I was doing, we just focused on like 4 mobility exercises. So we used squats as kind of the reassessment tool, but we just looked at thoracic mobility, we looked at quad mobility, hamstring, and adductor. Just did one corrective exercise for each, and people were finding that they just from that quick like minute of doing each exercise, they're able to get lower into their squat, or they're able to, that knee pain that they were feeling felt a little less or went away completely. So it just shows you that, not the site of pain isn't always the cause of the pain, and there's some quick manual therapy techniques that you can use and implement into your daily routine to help you move more efficiently.
Yeah. I mean, listen, one of my favorite quotes, Austin Powers, "I'm feeling very tight, like a tiger." And that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot at the Open, right? People come in, what can we help you with? What can we do? And you're like, I'm just feeling very tight. Not many people knew that line, which I was really disappointed with. But regardless, so we just enacted a lot of just soft tissue work and then just some post-round stretching.
So Fred and Matt, they both do that in their own practices where they do rehab and prehab with tons of different techniques to help everybody be more optimum for themselves and whatever that you're doing. So they can find you in New York City, and they could find you as in Fred, you as in Matt. You'll be on Long Island, so you pretty much have all of the South New York unlocked.
New York
Jersey
unlocked,
too, right?
so
Peeling to Jersey.
yeah, if you want to make the travel, we're here for you guys. But if you're dealing with any injuries, any questions regarding your training or your injuries, whatever it might be, we'd love to help you guys out. So just by all means, reach out to us, ask questions. We're here to help.
Yeah. We're Optimum Potential Podcast. Find us on YouTube, iTunes, and on Instagram. You can find us at O_P_podcast. Fred, where are you at on Instagram?
Golf and Your Body.
Golf and Your Body.
Instagram.
And Matt, Dr.Matt.Barle. Everybody knows Dr.Matt.Barle with 122K followers. You can find him at Dr.Matt.Barle on Instagram. Till next time, guys. Peace.
Later.